They didn't tell me much before I boarded the helicopter. Just a non-disclosure agreement the size of a phone book, a medical check, and a bag packed for 30 days offshore. I was told I'd be compensated handsomely for my time and to prepare for extended isolation. That last part gave me pause, but not enough to turn down 6 figures for a month of engineering oversight. I'd worked on rigs before, North Sea, Gulf, Arctic platforms. They all had their quirks, but I'd never seen a deployment this secretive. I didn't even know the name of the rig until we were flying over endless blue. Rig Persephone. The name was stenciled on the helipad when we touched down, black letters over industrial steel. The structure sprawled like a floating city, but nothing about it was welcoming. No flags, no logos, just gunmetal walls and antennas jutting into the sky like spears. Armed guards in matte uniforms greeted us at the landing pad. They didn't smile. My welcome packet was a plastic sleeve containing a key card, a retinal scan strip, and a laminated map. Under roll, someone had typed, Engineer, Core Shaft, 7, Oversight. Below that, Zone Access, Conditional. The air smelled like rust and salt, and something else. Something old. I followed the others, maybe 5 or 6 of us total, down a graded walkway into the main structure. The others peeled off one by one, called by name through handheld radios until it was just me and a man with thin glasses and a clipboard. Oxar. "I, Thomas Wilson," he said. "Senior engineer, right?" I nodded. He didn't introduce himself, just handed me a small earpiece and motioned to follow. We passed through 3 bulkheads, each guarded, each requiring a different level of access. One door scanned my iris, another took a blood sample. "Security theater?" I asked, half joking. He didn't laugh. "No, not theater." We descended 5 levels before reaching the living quarters. The hallway was narrow and too quiet. I saw no other personnel, no laughter, no music, none of the usual grit and grime camaraderie rigs develop after a week offshore. "There's your bunk," the man said, stopping at a steel door. "You're with James Chen. Try not to disturb him too much. He's been here longer than most." "Got it," I said. He turned without a word and vanished down the corridor. Inside, the quarters were clean but sterile. 2 bunks, 1 desk, a single porthole. My duffel was already on the lower bed. James Chen was sitting on the top bunk, cross-legged, staring at a handheld monitor that displayed a live feed sonar readout. He didn't look up. "Padam," I said, holding out a hand. He glanced at me, then back at the screen. "You shouldn't have come." I let my hand drop. "That's not ominous at all," he shrugged. "People don't come here for the money. They come because they're told to." I wasn't told, I signed up. James finally looked at me then. His eyes were bloodshot. He hadn't shaved in a while. "Then you're the worst kind." I didn't know how to respond, so I dropped my bag and sat at the desk. A laminated safety brochure lay beside the keyboard. It had an outdated diagram of the rig. Half the labeled areas didn't exist anymore, or had been renamed. I noticed one thing circled in red marker: Black Button Protocol, Deck 3. There was no further explanation. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bunk creaked with every motion. The walls groaned, as if the sea pressed against them too tightly. Somewhere above us, the wind whistled through antenna struts. But underneath it all, I heard something else. A rhythm. Faint, barely audible, but steady. A low, pulsing thump like a heartbeat coming from the ocean floor. Every few seconds, a dull thud echoed through the steel walls. Not random, not mechanical. I got up and moved to the porthole. Outside, the ocean stretched forever in all directions. The moon had risen, casting pale light across the waves, but the water didn't shimmer. It didn't reflect. It absorbed. Pitch black. I leaned in, trying to make out any movement. Then, just for a moment, I saw it. A ripple. A massive one, far beneath the surface. Too wide to be a whale, too slow to be a wave. It was like something down there had shifted. When I turned around, James was sitting up on his bunk, staring at me. "Don't look at the water," he said softly. I wanted to ask why, but something in his voice made me nod instead. I got back into bed, pulled the covers over my head like a child, and tried not to hear the pulsing anymore. Tried not to wonder what lay beneath the waves. I woke up, feeling like I'd slept with my head underwater. Every breath felt dense, and the inside of my mouth tasted like iron. The humming hadn't stopped. It had only grown fainter, as if it had sunk deeper overnight, still echoing from below. James was already up, standing in front of the porthole. His back was tense, hands clasped behind him like a soldier awaiting orders. "Still don't look?" I asked. He didn't turn. "It's easier if you don't ask questions." I didn't push it. At 700, a tone buzzed through the overhead speaker. A female voice followed, emotionless and clipped. "Level 3 personnel report to Briefing Hall A in 5 minutes. Delays will be documented." We filed into the corridor, joining a slow trickle of groggy faces. Most kept their heads down. No small talk. No yawning or stretching like I'd seen on other rigs. Everyone moved like they were trying not to be noticed, even though no one was watching. The briefing room looked like an auditorium stripped of anything soft. No posters, no clocks. Just rows of bolted down chairs and a metal podium under fluorescent lights that buzzed slightly out of sync. At the front stood a tall woman in a black turtleneck and a white ID badge clipped to her belt. Dr. Emery, according to the projection screen behind her. Her voice was surgical, her tone sharp enough to slice bread. "You're here for 30 days. You'll complete your rotations, you'll follow zone assignments, you'll report anomalies using the proper coded protocol. If you breach behavioral compliance, you will be extracted or reassigned. No exceptions. No good morning, no welcome, just commands." The screen shifted to a diagram labeled Core Shaft 7, Current Penetration, 10,470 meters. I blinked. That was deeper than anything I'd worked on, significantly. That was almost Challenger deep. She continued, "We've successfully drilled through 2 layers of basalt and a previously undocumented sedimentary pocket. That pocket contains organic material, dense, ancient, and under pressure. Sampling continues at controlled intervals." The next slide showed grainy images, black and white photos of what looked like root-like structures. One resembled a tangled web of cartilage. Another showed a curve, like a rib or tusk, twisting into the borehole wall. "Is this biological?" someone near the back asked. Emery didn't look at him. "Unknown, but the material reacts to heat, sound, and deep EM exposure. We are treating it as semi-organic until further notice." Another slide. This time, it was a sonar image. I felt my breath hitch. A metrical formation, 3 wide curves forming a crescent, rested at the bottom of the shaft, around 10,500 meters down. Not random, not natural. It looked designed. James leaned in close and whispered, "They call it the gate." I turned to him, but he was already leaning back, eyes forward. The woman clicked her remote again, but the screen flickered. For half a second, something else appeared. A blurry still frame of the borehole's live feed, but there was something in the hole, something massive, with layered ridges and a faint glow at its center. Then it was gone, just static. Dr. Emery didn't acknowledge it. "Effective immediately," she said, "access to Core Shaft 7 beyond 10,300 meters is restricted to Zone D personnel. Engineers will rotate in 12-hour shifts. Security protocols must be observed at all times. If you hear knocking, pulsing, or mechanical rhythm during your shift, document it, but do not respond, especially if it mimics language." No one moved. No one asked what she meant by mimics language. I wanted to raise my hand. I wanted to ask what the hell they were drilling into, but every nerve in my body warned me not to. Dr. Emery scanned the room. "You're not researchers, you're operators. Your job is not to understand, it's to continue." Then she smiled. It was the kind of smile you'd see on a person who'd already accepted what they were afraid of and made peace with it. "Dismissed," she said. We stood, slowly, quietly. Even the chairs seemed to groan in protest. As I walked out, I caught a final glance at the slide left frozen on the screen behind her. It showed a cross-section of the shaft, zoomed in at its lowest levels. Just before it cut off at the bottom, in faded red font, one phrase had been stamped. No further depth, but there was a line beneath it. A handwritten scrawl I doubt we were meant to see. It's not the depth, it's what hears us when we reach it. You could always tell who'd been reassigned to Zone D. They walked slower, talked less, ate little, if at all. Some of them stared too long at their own hands. Others flinched at distant, mechanical noises, things most of us tuned out after a day or two on station. I wasn't surprised when the assignment came down. Cole, Station 3, 800, Zone D access. Bring your cold suit. Cold suit, not wetsuit. That was the first red flag. By the time I reached the Zone D airlock, James was already suited up. He leaned against the steel wall with the kind of tired posture you only get when you've already seen too much. He didn't say anything, just handed me a new headset and motioned for me to follow. The hallway past the Zone D checkpoint was different. Darker. The lights were dimmed on purpose, supposedly to preserve power. But the shadows didn't fall right. Corners seemed to stretch just a little too long. Sound echoed in ways that made it hard to tell where it came from. The air smelled sterile, but beneath it was something else, something like rust. Or maybe something that had once been alive and wasn't anymore. "Welcome to the fun house," James muttered. He keyed in a sequence at the final bulkhead. The door hissed open, revealing the shaft control observation deck, a half-dome built right above the borehole. Through the reinforced glass, I could see the vertical tunnel plunging into blackness. Lights marked its interior in 10-meter intervals. The glow faded quickly as it descended into nothing. Something deep below pulsed. Once, like the soft rumble of distant thunder, but underwater. I looked at James. "That's normal?" I asked. "No." There were 3 others inside, a technician named Mayer, a welder named Hobbs, and a soft-spoken systems analyst named Layla. I recognized her from the orientation, where she hadn't said a word. Her eyes were darker than I remembered, rimmed in red. "Assignment simple," James said, strapping himself into a harness beside the vertical winch. "Casing reinforcement at 10,310 meters. They think the structure's shifting again." "Shifting?" I echoed. "Like the ground?" "No," Layla said quietly from the console. "The shaft, like it's breathing." I blinked at her, but James cut in before I could ask more. "We patch. We reinforce. We don't look too long. We don't listen too close." My descent began a few minutes later. The harness ride was smooth, eerily so. The whir of the winch motor faded as the ambient pressure increased. My ears popped once, twice. At 9,000 meters, the steel walls of the shaft had a faint glisten, as if they'd been sweating. At 9,700, the lights began to hum slightly off rhythm. At 10,000, I passed the last inspection drone, its shell torn open and left hanging like the carcass of a deep-sea fish. No explanation offered. 10,310 meters. I stopped beside the damaged section. The steel casing was warped, bulging inward as if something had pressed against it from the outside, not buckled from pressure. Pushed. Deliberately. I tried not to think about it as I clamped the patch frame in place. My fingers moved in rhythm, muscle memory taking over. Then I heard it, faint at first, like tapping, rhythmic, measured. Tap, 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 tap. I froze. "James?" I said into the headset. "You hear that?" A pause. Then, "Yeah. Any idea what it is?" Another pause. "No." The tapping stopped. In its place came something worse. A voice. But it wasn't in my ears. It was in my suit. A soft whisper, directly behind my left ear. I twisted instinctively, but there was nothing. Just the curved casing wall and the quiet glow of the shaft lights. Then it spoke again. "You are not the first." I screamed, not out loud, just in my mind, a panic-locked freeze that clamped my lungs and made my fingers tremble. I ripped the headset off and waved toward the winch line. James reeled me up fast, thank God. When I emerged into the Zone D deck, I collapsed onto the steel floor. Layla was standing at the edge of the glass, Her hand pressed to it. She didn't even look at me. "It's mimicking now," she said. James looked shaken but composed. He leaned over and helped me out of the suit. "They never told you, did they?" he asked. "About the voices?" I shook my head. "What the hell is it?" He looked down into the shaft. "We don't know. But whatever it isn't waiting for us to reach it." He glanced at the others, then added, almost reluctantly, reaching up. Layla didn't sleep after my incident. She kept pacing back and forth in the auxiliary lab, watching the live shaft feed like a hawk. Not the main camera everyone saw in the daily logs. The unfiltered feed, the one that was stored off record in encrypted folders marked internal use only. I knew I shouldn't have been in there with her, but James vouched for me. Said I had a right to see what nearly made my brain fold in on itself. "Watch this," Layla whispered. She rewound the footage by about 10 hours and played it back at 4x speed. It was mostly still. Steel walls, shaft lights, static glitches. Then, at 3:32, something flickered into view at the edge of the camera. I leaned in closer. A long, slick tendril, dark as oil and nearly transparent, slid along the inside of the shaft wall. It moved like it was feeling, brushing, coiling slightly around a riveted seam. Layla paused it. "Zoom, you see it?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "It's been getting bolder. At first it was just shadows. Then the pressure readings went weird. Now it touches the walls." "And that was at 10,310? "No," she said, eyes still fixed on the screen. "That was above the last patch job, around 10,260. It's moving upward." She pulled up another feed, this one from a thermal imager. A glowing splotch floated just outside the drilled tunnel. At first glance, it looked like a temperature anomaly, but as she adjusted the contrast, the shape came into focus. Not tentacles, fingers. Long, impossibly thin fingers, clawing against the outside casing. 5 of them, then retracting. Then, slowly, something like a face. Not human, nothing close, just a symmetry of pressure spots, heat flares, and eye-like depressions. Watching. I backed away from the screen. "Why is this being hidden?" I asked. "Why the hell hasn't this thing been shut down?" Layla didn't answer. She just pointed to a folder at the top of the directory, labeled Golyath. Inside were logs, scans, EEGs, audio recordings, all dated before the shaft passed 10,000 meters. I scrolled down and found something else. Footage from another shaft. Not Core Shaft 7. This one was labeled Chimera Shaft. The footage was corrupted, but I could make out 3 things. The shaft had reached over 10,600 meters. The interior casing had been ripped open from the outside. The feed ended with a frame-by-frame of the glass observation window, spiderwebbed with cracks, and a figure in a suit banging on the inside, his helmet crushed, blood floating upward in slow red arcs. Then black. I closed the folder. My heart thundered. James entered the room quietly, holding 2 coffees. "Bad timing?" he asked. "Too late for that," I muttered. He handed me a cup, then walked up to the feed. "Thing in the wall again?" he asked Layla. She nodded. "It's trying to get in. Not with brute force, with patience." "Why?" I asked. Layla finally turned to look at me. Her eyes were wide and sleep-starved. "Because we opened something, and now it knows we're here. The deeper we drill, the louder we call it." James gestured toward the folder I had open. "You saw Chimera." "Yeah," he exhaled slowly. "There was another team, 2 years ago. Same depth range, different ocean trench. Their feed showed the same patterns, same rhythmic pulsing, same tendrils. We were told the shaft collapsed due to pressure instability." Layla stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But I've heard the raw audio. The last few minutes of Chimera?" She paused. "It wasn't collapse. It was a response. The shaft was screaming." Before I could even process that, the lights in the lab flickered, then dimmed, then went out completely. A moment of silence. Then, a pulse. Not a mechanical hum, not something artificial. It felt like a heartbeat, pressing against the walls of the station itself, and in the moment of absolute darkness that followed, we heard the voice, all three of us, simultaneously. "You are closer now. Keep digging." When the lights came back on, nobody said a word. Layla's hand was clenched so tightly around her coffee mug, her knuckles had gone white. James wouldn't stop staring at the screen, even though it had gone to static. And me, I was still hearing it. "You are closer now. Keep digging." I wanted to believe it was some trick, some pressure-induced psychosis, a hallucination, a gas leak, anything. But the way Layla and James locked eyes, silently acknowledging they'd both heard the same thing, killed that hope. It was real. The next shift meeting was held in the secondary ops room, even though there was no official protocol for what had just happened. Dr. Markov didn't even address the blackout. He simply called it a routine systems hiccup. Then came the real gut punch. "As of 1200 hours, he said calmly, "we are initiating Phase 7. The dig team will begin descent to 10,450 meters by end of shift. Structural integrity systems are pre-approved. Seismic interference levels remain within acceptable parameters." There was a long silence. Someone coughed. Another person muttered under their breath. And then, to my disbelief, no one objected, except me. "Sir," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "with all due respect, we just had a major systems blackout. There's unlocked seismic activity, and a thing has been physically interacting with the shaft wall. We're not ready for descent." Markov stared at me for a moment, his expression unreadable. "I appreciate your concern, Dr. Mercer, but the directive has come from above, the funding bodies, the board. The clock is ticking. This dig is our priority." Layla stood up. "You mean Goliath is their priority?" Markov's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Dr. Alvarez." She didn't back down. "You're treating this like we're just drilling through rock, but there's something down there, alive. It made contact. It's aware of us." "That's speculative," Markov replied coldly. "Until I see hard, peer-reviewed evidence, I suggest we stay on task." "I have evidence," Layla snapped. "The Chimera footage, the unfiltered shaft feed, the pressure maps from the last 48 hours. Markov didn't flinch. "All of which you accessed without authorization. I suggest you get back in line." I looked around the room. The rest of the crew, scientists, techs, submersible pilots, they all looked uncomfortable, but no one stood up, no one challenged him. The fear was obvious. Say something, and you're on the next retrieval pod back to surface duty. Career over, blacklisted, or worse. The room dismissed. Layla, James, and I stayed behind. "They're pushing it," she said. "They don't care what's down there. They want contact. They want results." James nodded. "I was in on the pre-briefing. The sponsors knew about the Chimera incident, knew the danger. That's why the shaft was reinforced with bioinsulative casing, not to keep pressure out, but to keep something in." "Then why risk it?" I asked. James looked pale. "Because they think it's intelligent. And old, older than Earth. Whatever it is, they think it predates biology as we understand it. They're not here to extract samples. They're trying to talk to it." Layla leaned in close. "We need to stop the descent." I stared at her, caught between logic and something primal. "Stop it how?" She looked back at the feed. "We go down there. Before they start Phase 7, we document the wall interactions, log the evidence, and send it topside. Not through official channels. Direct uplink. If we can prove it's a threat, maybe someone will shut this thing down." "You want us to go into the shaft?" I asked. She nodded. "We're already in the mouth of the beast. Better to know what's in its stomach than wait to be swallowed." James didn't speak, but the look in his eyes said it all. We'd made our decision. We'd descend. Unauthorized. There was no going through official channels. Layla made that clear from the start. They'll shut us down, or worse, log us as unfit for duty. We disappear and nobody asks questions this far below sea level. We prepped in silence, moving like ghosts between corridors. Most of the station was asleep or sedated. Third shift had just gone down. The timing was perfect. Chimera 2 was docked in Bay 3, a newer two-person deep excursion submersible outfitted for shaft navigation and zero-light conditions. It wasn't supposed to be used without authorization, but Layla still had admin clearance from her earlier system override. She'd never revoked it. "I'll pilot," she said. "James, I need you topside at the feed console. If anything starts moving again, log it, flag it, and ping the uplink. Don't wait for confirmation." James didn't like it, but he nodded. "This is a bad idea." "I know," Layla said softly, "but it's a worse idea not to know." The shaft yawned below us, a dark, spiraling descent drilled through ancient crust and methane ice. Some joked it looked like the throat of a god. We launched. As Chimera 2 descended past 9,000 meters, the station lights faded behind us, swallowed by pressure and darkness. Everything from that point on was only visible through Chimera's sonar mapping and Layla's high-sensitivity camera suite. The walls were rough but oddly uniform, more like melted glass than rock. I could swear they pulsed in the sonar feed. "I've got faint EM echoes," I said, watching the screens. "Non-terrestrial pattern, intermittent but repeating every 43 seconds. Like a heartbeat," Layla whispered, "or a call." We crossed 10,000 meters. That was the unofficial red line, the point at which the shaft's pressure sensors started reading anomalies the engineers couldn't explain. The moment the walls stopped acting like geological formations and started reacting. Layla slowed Chimera 2, switching to lateral thrusters as we hovered near a massive outcropping that hadn't been visible on previous surveys. "What is that?" I asked. The sonar imaging was glitchy, fuzzy in a way it shouldn't have been. She zoomed in. It wasn't rock. It wasn't coral. It was organic. A curved formation, like an enormous rib or spined limb, protruding slightly from the shaft wall. Its surface wasn't eroded. It was smooth and iridescent, almost oily. "It's not dead," Layla whispered. "It's waiting." I blinked. "How do you know?" She pointed at the readout. "That's not just a heat signature. It's neuronal activity, like a brainstem, firing in rhythmic bursts." Suddenly, the cameras went dark. Every display inside Chimera 2 froze for a half second, then came back upside down. "Jesus," I muttered, gripping the console. "Did we invert?" "No, we're still right side up." The feed flipped itself. There was no impact, no jolt, no drift. But the walls were different now. They weren't just walls. They were coated, layered, with something that shimmered faintly, like membrane, stretched taut over bone. And then we heard it. A whisper. No speakers, no vibrations. Just a sound that appeared inside our heads like a thought that didn't belong to us. "You are near enough. Ask your question." Layla froze. "Did you hear?" "Yes," I said immediately. A faint blue line appeared in the middle of the sonar grid, growing wider, slowly widening into an aperture. A door in the rock. The shaft was opening. "James," I said into the comms, "do you see this on the main feed?" The static. Then, I see it. Are you opening that?" "No, it opened for us." "Something's happening up here," James said, voice strained. "The internal walls, some of them are dripping, like condensation, but the wrong color. Purple, oily. Some of the crew are waking up and just staring at the shaft monitors. Not talking, just staring." Layla grabbed my arm. "We go through. Now. We record, we prove." I should have said no. Should have called for assent. But I nodded. And we passed through the opening. Inside was a tunnel. Not carved, not drilled, formed. Like veins inside some massive body, lined with a substance that twitched and flexed as we moved. Something moved in the distance, just outside our lights. "Switching to full spectrum," Layla said. The image cleared, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe. Floating ahead was a form, long, slender, humanoid, but not. Its proportions were wrong. Its limbs too thin, too long, ending in fingers that tapered into nothingness. Its face had no features, just a smooth, blank surface that rippling words flickered across in dozens of ancient languages. One of them was English. What will you trade for knowledge? And in the silence, as Layla slowly reached for the recording controls, the figure turned toward us. Back us out, I whispered. Layla didn't move. The figure hovered ahead, unmoving but aware. You could feel its attention like a low-voltage hum, skimming just under the skin. There was no sound in the shaft, but inside Chimera 2, it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. The words on its face shifted again, this time in English. Longer now, like a sentence being slowly typed across a blank terminal. You descended to ask. Now ask. We never said anything, I muttered. We didn't speak a word. Layla glanced at me. We didn't have to. The tunnel around us pulsed, gently, like a throat swallowing. The interior was contracting and expanding in time with the sonar pulse. Biological, rhythmic, and waiting. I'm recording all of this, she said. If we die, James will have the feed. He'll know what we saw. I'm not ready to die, I said. Neither am I. That's why we have to understand it. Then, as if driven by instinct, or maybe compulsion, Layla leaned toward the mic. What are you? She asked. The figure didn't move. The tunnel didn't change. But on its smooth, featureless face, new words formed. We are the memory of those who drowned in darkness. Damon must answer. The maintenance of the aquascope. We are what comes before the light. We are the echo in the deep. Layla looked shaken but kept her voice steady. Why now? Why show yourself? The answer came faster this time. The shaft has opened. The three holes breathing again. You came to feed. Will you feed it? Beat it what? I asked, heart hammering. What do you mean? The figure tilted slightly, just a few degrees, but it felt like the whole world shifted with it. Then, more words. You will have understanding. In exchange, a memory. One you cannot choose. Layla looked over at me. It wants something from us, but we don't know what it'll take. We don't even know if it's real, I said, trying to breathe evenly. This could be stress-induced psychosis, deep pressure, hallucinations. We've already crossed the line of known survivability. You saw it, Ezra. We both did. It's in the recordings. James confirmed it topside. The sub creaked slightly around us. An unnatural, wet sound. The walls of the tunnel flexed again. Something behind us moved, just out of view, but we didn't look back. Because we both knew. Once you look, it knows your name. The figure's words rippled again. Offer accepted. What? I said. We didn't. Layla's eyes rolled back in her head. She slumped in her seat, convulsing once. Then went still. Layla? I reached over, shaking her gently. Her vitals spiked, then flatlined, only for a moment, before stabilizing into a different pattern. Her heartbeat was faster, her EEG wildly active, like she was dreaming at impossible speed. She gasped, suddenly awake. My mother's voice, she whispered, eyes wide with horror. It took the sound of my mother's voice? And he nodded, hesitating. What? She used to sing to me, Layla said, trembling. In Farsi, every night as a kid. That's what it took. I remember her lips moving, but there's no sound. I can see it in my mind, but I'll never hear it again. It's gone. She looked up at the thing. That was the bargain. I sat frozen. Layla, we have to leave. But the figure moved forward now, closer, and words spread across its face one final time. One must stay, one must ascend, or it will follow. The feed flickered. James? I called through comms. James, do you copy? Static. Then, I see you, James said, but you're not in the shaft anymore. You're not anywhere. I turned to Layla. She looked different, like something inside her had shifted. More rigid, more quiet. I'll stay, she said softly. If we both try to leave, it'll come up after us. No, we're both leaving, I snapped. She shook her head. It knows me now. I heard it whisper my name from inside the tunnel. If we go up together, it won't stop. You saw what it can do from just one trade? Imagine what happens if we refuse its terms. I'm not leaving you down here. You're not. You're carrying the message. That's what this was always about. I started to argue, but then I saw it. The figure was no longer in front of us. It was in the sub, behind her, and it was smiling. I don't know how long I've been climbing. It feels like a lifetime, but maybe it's only been hours. The pulse from below, the rhythmic, almost seductive hum has only gotten louder as I make my way up, filling my ears, my mind. It's no longer just a sound. It's a presence. Something that's pulling at me, dragging at the edges of my thoughts. Each step I take on the rickety ladder of the shaft feels heavier than the last, as if the weight of the rig itself is bearing down on me. My legs ache, my body protests with each move, but I keep going, driven by something, fear, curiosity, or maybe something worse. I can feel it, a sense of inevitability crawling under my skin, a pull towards something I can't yet see but somehow know is waiting for me at the top. But as I climb, strange things begin to happen. The shaft, the narrow walls that should have been cold and metallic, are starting to shift. I think I'm imagining it at first. A flicker of movement at the corner of my vision, like the metal is breathing. Or worse, alive. But it's not just the walls that are changing. The further I climb, the more I feel like I'm losing touch with what's real. My hands begin to sweat as they grip the ladder, and the world around me begins to distort. I think I see faces in the walls, faces I recognize but not quite. My brother's face flickers in the reflection of the shaft's metal surface, his eyes wide and pleading. I blink, and he's gone. It happens again a few steps up, this time with James's face twisted and haunting. Then Robert's, Michael's, even my own. All their faces flash by me, one after another, too quick to focus on, but long enough to make my heart race. Focus, I tell myself under my breath, the words echoing strangely in the hollow space. But my mind is slipping. The further I ascend, the more disconnected I feel from the present. The past begins to bleed through. Fragments of memories long forgotten push their way to the surface. I see moments from my childhood, from the days before I ever stepped foot on this cursed rig. A family dinner, laughter, a warmth that feels like it belongs to someone else. The memory is so vivid that I can almost smell my mother's cooking, hear the clinking of plates, but it's gone in a blink, fading like smoke. I shake my head, trying to clear the fog, but it's no use. Each memory is like a thread unraveling, pulling me further from myself. They don't belong to me, not anymore, but they keep coming. I can't stop them. I can't stop me. The worst part? I don't think I want to. I feel something now, a presence behind me, closer than it should be. I turn, but there's nothing there, just the empty black shaft. And yet, I feel the pressure, the weight of eyes on my back, pressing down on me from above. Damn it, almost there, I whisper, the words scraping across my dry throat. But as I reach the top, something pulls me back, like an invisible hand clamping down on my chest. The rig groans, the entire structure rattling, as if something is shifting beneath it. My breathing quickens. I can't move forward. The shaft itself feels alive, resisting my climb. A voice calls out to me, distant but familiar. "Come back, Wilson." It's Robert's voice, the same words he said when I first arrived, but this time they're coded in an eerie finality. Come back. I try to ignore it, to focus on the door that's just inches away from me. But the voice keeps repeating itself, growing louder, more insistent, until it's all I can hear, all I can feel. My heart beats harder, faster, and I feel my chest tightening. Come back, Wilson. It's too late. Too late? I slam my hand into the wall in frustration, the metal rattling in response. The door is just a few feet away. I'm almost there, but the world is spinning now, spinning faster than I can keep up with. My vision blurs, the faces of my past flashing around me once again, but this time, they're distorted. I hear my own voice this time calling out, but it's not me. It's not my voice. It's the thing below, the thing beneath the rig, the thing that's been feeding on my memories, on my mind. It's in my head now and it's hungry. I can't let it win. With every ounce of strength I have left, I push through, forcing my body to move, to reach the door. And just as I do, the world shifts again. The space around me warps, and I feel my body lurch forward, dragged by some unseen force into the unknown. The door opens and I step through, but it's not the rig I expected to find. It's something else entirely. The hallway is too long, stretching out in a way that defies logic. The walls are covered in strange symbols, like something ancient, something wrong. The air is thick, charged with an energy I can't understand, and the hum that has been with me this whole time, fills the space around me. I take a step, and suddenly, I'm not alone. Figures move in the shadows, silent, lurking. I can hear them breathing, feel their presence even though I can't see their faces. Their eyes are on me. I can feel them watching, and in the distance, I hear a whisper. Come closer. You know you want to. It's not a question. I move forward, my legs moving of their own accord, and I know now that I've crossed a line I can't uncross. There's no going back. Not anymore. I feel the darkness closing in around me as the rig behind me fades from memory. Only the hum remains, like a heartbeat, drawing me deeper into the unknown. I'm no longer sure if this is real or if I've lost my mind entirely. But I know one thing. I've crossed the threshold, and whatever's waiting for me on the other side, whatever it is, it's not something I can fight. It's something I'll have to face, and face it I will. The hum of the rig was louder now, thrumming in my chest like the pulse of something alive, something vast. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, not just by the men on this platform, but by something else, something older, something beneath the water, beneath the earth. James had disappeared after the last incident, and the silence of his absence was unsettling. I'd gone looking for him, but I couldn't find him anywhere. No one seemed to care. They went about their business, acting like nothing had changed. But I knew something was off. It wasn't just the mysterious operations beneath the rig, nor the strange protocol that nobody would speak about. It wasn't even the inexplicable darkness that had surrounded the rig the night before. There was something much worse now. It was in my head. The echo. I first heard it during my briefing. The strange low hum that had been reverberating from the depths below. At first, I thought it was just the rig's machinery, but when I started to pay attention, I realized the sound was not coming from any of the machines. It wasn't mechanical. It was organic, almost, in the way it pulsed. And it wasn't just the sound. It was the sensation, the feeling in my bones, in the marrow, the very essence of me, vibrating. The echo seemed to seep through my thoughts like a slow poison. It tugged at the edges of my memories, warping them. Things that had happened days ago, hours ago, felt like they were from another life. I couldn't remember when it started. It could have been yesterday or last week. The men weren't talking about it, though. They acted like everything was normal, like everything was fine. But it wasn't. I had to talk to someone about it, and I knew I couldn't trust anyone on the rig. They had too many secrets, too many unspoken rules. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I needed to find the source of the echo, the pulse from below. It was the only way I could escape whatever was slowly seeping into my mind. It didn't take long before I found an old maintenance ladder that led down to the lower levels. The warning signs had been scrubbed clean, and the lights flickered like the whole system was on its last leg. The air was thicker down here, oppressive, filled with a scent I couldn't place. Not oil, not machinery, something else. A rotting smell, perhaps. I descended, my boots scraping against the metal rungs, and the hum grew louder. It resonated in my skull, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts, threatening to swallow me whole. By the time I reached the bottom, the sound was almost unbearable. A steady pulse, that vibrated through the air. The hallway stretched before me, dark and narrow. It felt like I was stepping into a different world, one where the rules of reality no longer applied. I wasn't sure how long I walked. Time seemed to bend here, stretch, and warp in ways I didn't understand. The echo filled my mind, drowning out everything else. I should have turned back, should have listened to the little voice that told me to leave, but the pull was too strong. The echo beckoned me forward, like it was calling me home. Finally, I came to a door. It was unmarked, just a steel door with a rusted handle. It was old, far older than anything else on the rig. My hand shook as I reached for the handle, and the moment I touched it, I knew what lay behind that door. The truth. I yanked it open, and the cold hit me like a slap. The air was damp, musty, and as I stepped inside, I could hear the echo clearer than ever before. It was like I was standing in the heart of it, in the very chamber of whatever was making that sound. My breath quickened, and then I saw it. In the center of the room was a massive, blackened shaft. It twisted down into the earth, an abyss that seemed to go on forever. At the edge of the shaft there were lines, intricate symbols carved into the floor, pulsing with the same rhythmic hum. I stepped closer, my heart hammering in my chest. But as I did, the room seemed to distort. I blinked, and the echo grew louder, unbearable. Something brushed my mind. Images, voices, half-formed memories. And then, as if from nowhere, the voices solidified. They were familiar. My own. My family. People I hadn't seen in years, all speaking in unison, all warning me to leave. But it was too late. The chamber seemed to collapse around me. The walls stretched outward, and the shaft, it wasn't just a shaft anymore. It was an open maw, a gaping wound in the world, and it was pulling everything toward it. I tried to scream, but my voice was drowned out by the roar of the echo, the hum. And then, just as quickly, it stopped. The room went silent. I was alone again, standing at the edge of the shaft. My head spun. I couldn't remember how I'd gotten here, or when. Was this place real? Had it been real all along? The chamber seemed to flicker in and out of existence, the lines on the floor fading and then returning. I staggered back toward the door, my heart thudding in my chest. I needed to get out. I had to leave before it consumed me. But as I turned to run, I heard the echo again, this time behind me, and it was getting closer. I ran. I didn't look back. My feet pounded against the metal floor as I sprinted down the dark hallway, the echo rising behind me. It was getting louder, like it was chasing me, closing in, trying to drag me back into that chamber. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, frantic, disjointed, and terrified. I couldn't stop the tremors in my hands, couldn't quiet the frantic pulse in my chest. The air in the narrow corridor was thick with something ancient, something wrong. The deeper I went into the rig, the more disoriented I became. The walls stretched and contracted like they were breathing, warping in ways that felt impossible. I reached the ladder, hands slick with sweat, as I grabbed the rungs and started to climb. My body was heavy with exhaustion, my head dizzy from the pull of the echo. I had to get to the surface. I had to, but as I reached the top, the hum intensified, and I felt it, an oppressive force, something pressing down on me. I scrambled up the last few rungs, throwing myself onto the platform, gasping for breath. But the moment I stood, I was hit with the full force of it. The rig was different. The sky was darker, the horizon an unnatural shade of black. The air smelled of decay, and everywhere around me the sound, the pulse, was vibrating through the entire structure. I looked around, panicked. The crew? Where were they? The men who had been here, working, moving about like it was any other day. They were gone. The rig was abandoned, but it was still here, still pulsing, still calling. I stumbled toward the control room. The door was cracked open, the dim light inside flickering like a dying flame. My heart raced as I stepped inside. And there, in the center of the room, was something. Someone. He stood at the console, his back to me. His clothes were torn, his skin pale, almost translucent. There was something wrong about the way he stood. rigid and unmoving. He didn't even acknowledge me as I approached. "James?" I whispered, my voice shaky. There was no response, just the hum, the pulse, growing louder with every second. I stepped closer, and that's when I saw it. The screen in front of him was alive with strange symbols, lines twisting and bending across the surface, the same markings I had seen in the chamber beneath the rig. They pulsed with the echo, syncing with the rhythm, as if they were alive, feeding on the sound. I reached out, shaking his shoulder. His skin was cold, unnaturally cold, and as my fingers brushed against him, I felt a jolt. A sharp, painful pulse of energy coursed through me, and my vision blurred. For a brief moment, I saw it. A glimpse of something beyond the rig, beyond the world. A dark shape, massive and shifting, its presence looming, reaching out from the depths. My breath caught in my throat. The echo, it wasn't just a sound. It was a doorway, a portal. James finally turned to face me. His eyes were hollow, sunken, like the life had been drained from him. But it wasn't his eyes that caught my attention. It was the smile. It was wrong. Too wide. Too twisted. "You shouldn't have come back," he whispered, his voice distant, far away. "The echo has already claimed you." I took a step back, but my feet wouldn't move. It was like I was anchored to the floor by an invisible force, held in place by the the pull of the pulse. "James, what's going on? What's happening?" My voice broke, panic seeping through every word. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned back to the console, his fingers moving in strange patterns across the surface, as if guiding the symbols, coaxing them into life. And then the room, the rig itself, began to tremble. The walls shook violently, the floor beneath my feet cracking and groaning. The hum, the echo, was everywhere now, filling every corner, every crack. It was like the rig itself was alive, like it was breathing in time with the pulse. I heard a voice, my own voice, whispering in the back of my mind, repeating the same words over and over. "You should have never come down. You should have never listened." A scream echoed from somewhere deep within the rig, my scream, and then everything stopped. The echo, the hum, the tremors, it all faded into a deep, suffocating silence. I was standing in the control room, but it was no longer the same room. The walls were peeling away, revealing nothing but a vast emptiness. And in that emptiness was a figure, something tall and dark, its features shifting, indistinct. It reached out toward me, its form coiling, twisting into something more. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. The last thing I saw was James's face, a twisted, silent grin stretching across his lips as the figure enveloped him, pulling him into the void. And then I was swallowed whole. The echo had claimed us all.